Hello and welcome to aniMAYtion 2019. Today is the first episode and the category is bounce. And as I've said before, I'll be doing them a day early, so you'll get to see what I've done and how I've gone through it. I'm sure some of you masters out there won't learn much from me, but I will be reviewing and looking at some of the best from the previous days. So obviously there won't be any today, but I'm just going to go through a few things like the rules and so forth. There are actually some rules, yes. So I'll start with that in fact. I'll start with a few of these points and then I'll show you my bounce animation, which is very straightforward and simple, but it's just to warm up that one. And then I'll just round up with a few things. So first of all, the rules. The rules are, the main rule is that you don't use motion capture stuff and you don't just sort of plonk on an animation that someone else has done onto a character that's been downloaded. It wouldn't be much of a learning experience unless that's what you were trying to learn. But the main focus of this is to improve our animation skills, things like timing and all that sort of stuff. So it's supposed to be just sort of basic sort of keyframe animations. I mean, you could use things like pose libraries if you're a bit more experienced, but if you're doing simple animations, then I would steer clear of those so you get used to posing as well. So if you download a rig with pose libraries, then hopefully you'll go a bit further with your animation. Someone was saying, surely we haven't got enough time to do a full animation, and I'm not expecting people to come out with amazing animations that they've spent hours and hours on. It's supposed to be just a simple task. If you can spend half an hour doing an animation, then spend half an hour and see how far you get. So maybe give yourself half an hour each day, and that adds up to an hour, and then you can enter your hour-long work. So that's probably the minimum in a sense to achieve something, I would say. Others of you might be spending an hour each day, and therefore it'll be a 2-hour effort, and therefore you might get something more out of it. Yes, but I'm not expecting much. Maybe on the last 3 there's superhero and the other ones, sports and so forth. So you might go a bit further with those and maybe put a bit more time in. But the time is up to you. It's a learning experience. That's the whole point of this. It's not about winning, because you don't actually win. You just complete it. It's like a computer game. You complete it rather than win it. What am I talking about? Babbling now. Anyway, rules, that's pretty much it. Entering, you can either put your work up on, I'd like you to put your work up on Sketchfab, and in fact to win the Sketchfab prize you need to have your stuff on Sketchfab. It's nice and easy. I have a tutorial. I'll try and remember to put a card in the corner and a link in the description. And it's really helpful because then I can, when I'm reviewing the animations, I can talk through it and spin around and look at them from different angles. And it's very straightforward. You just export your FBX and upload it to Sketchfab, and that's pretty much it. And ideally you'll post that Sketchfab file, embed it into Discord or Facebook. In fact, I think you just put the link in and it automatically comes up. It certainly does with Facebook. I can't remember Discord or not, but I'll be looking at both of those. Some people are a bit against Facebook, and fair enough, but other people I think are only on Facebook and don't like things like Discord. So I'm happy to do both and look at both, so I'll try my best to fit all that in. In terms of with these videos, in order to be in it, you've got to post that day before, so if that makes sense. So post on the correct day. So the first day being Wednesday for bounce. Obviously this is a day early, but tomorrow, Wednesday, will be the first day, and posting at the end of that day will allow me to pick it up on the Thursday for my video, and then I'll be able to put it in and talk about it and say, look at this lovely work that you've all done. Okay, so if you want your work reviewed and talked about at least, it may not be fully reviewed, just talked about, and I might pick on certain ones saying, look at this amazing piece or something, then make sure you get your videos up on those days on time. Otherwise, I'll probably do a sort of roundup right at the very end and talk about it a bit then, so you might be featured in that as well. So today's bounce animation, let's take a look. So here's my animation, as you can see, and like I say, it's fairly straightforward. Put a smiley face on my ball, so I thought that would help you see the motion that's going through. I put a bit of squash and stretch in there just for a bit of a challenge, but I didn't take it too far. I didn't want to spend too long on this one, and I'll spend more effort on the next. You can see my graph editor here. So this is the Z location, And I use the graph editor a lot in this case because it seems quite an obvious one for the bounce following the movement of the up and down in this case, and the X location. You can show your different channels, as they're called, by pressing Shift H, and that will just show that one channel. And you can see it's pretty linear in a sense that it's going across at a similar speed all the way. But the Z location is the one, if I press Shift H again, you can see that sort of bouncing motion up and down. Obviously hard, what are they? Hard vectors, as I call them. So hard angles here. So if you press V, you can change these. So these ones are free, are they? I can't remember now actually. Just the ones that are default, and they're sort of Bezier curves. So if I were to rotate this, it would do that. But this one is vector, so I can move each of these individually. And you just give them a nice sharp point, and it's hitting the ground hard, so it's bouncing up straight away. Whereas it's going slower at the top, and so it's traveling slower, and speeding up sort of. You can see I've got some scale in here as well. I did a slightly rigged ball. It's not great. I'll just show you that quickly. So when I scale it, it stretches, but it keeps its volume. So it just scales in the Z axis. So if I press that, it's only scaling the Z, but I have got a constraint on it, which is kind of nice, which is a maintain volume constraint. So it just scales in the Z, but it will keep its volume, so it does some proper stretching, if that makes sense. And you can see my scale if I choose the Z channel here, so Shift H, you can see the weird scaling that's going on. If I hold down Control and go up with my middle mouse button, drag up with my middle mouse button, you can see my weird scaling that's going on here. And it sort of makes sense. This is the sort of stretch bits, and those are the bounces, so stretches there. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. The other thing that's really useful, I find, is these motion paths. So you can put those in by going over to the object modifier here, and there is motion paths there. You can set the start and end times. That should probably be 55 is fine. Yeah, I'll have my end of 55. That makes sense. Doesn't do much at the end. And update paths, and you can see I did a bit of changing before I updated these, and they moved slightly. So if you make any changes, you can update your paths, and then it will show you this path. And that's obviously where it's traveling, and the frame numbers in there as well, which is quite nice. And there are some other options you can do here, which you can mess around with and enjoy. So that's my first animation, fairly straightforward and simple. I didn't want to spend too long at the moment because I'm still sorting a few other things out, so I wasn't able to spend long. And you've seen a bouncing ball in my sort of previous tutorials if you've looked at those. So nothing complicated from me today. I'm looking forward to the rest of animation and put a bit more effort in, to be honest. So hopefully you've got something from this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your animations. Make sure you post them on time so that I can review them on Thursday. So again, looking forward to seeing your work, and see you next time.